Okay, I guess that is time to go. Thank you very much, Jerome, for getting this wonderful group of people organized to talk about the athlete of the future. In my esteemed presence, we have, of course, the master, Jerome Fogel, who's responsible for keeping everything glued together and working. He's the co-founder and partner at Fogel and Potamianos LLP. He's known as a deal maker. He's helped procure some deals for me, so I will definitely attest to that being true. He's an innovator in the legal community. If there's things that you didn't think were possible, Jerome will say they're possible and he'll make it happen. He represents very successfully both buyers and sellers in stock purchases, active purchases, and buyouts. And he was selected to the Super Lawyers Rising Stars in 2020 and 2021. I've just got to mention something about Jerome. So, and also Constantine, his partner. I get these gifts, okay, from these guys, being one of their clients, which for this reason alone, I would belong to their law firm. But what actually happened was Jerome and Constantine started sending me, little coffees from Africa and all these cool little things. And, 1 week it would be, something, a coffee from Africa, and then it would be something else and something else. And I was always like, oh my God, what am I going to get next? And then my wife called me and said, you've got a package at the house. And I was like, well, just open it. She said, no, it's a big package. So I said, well, open it. Where's it from? She said, no, I think it's from Jerome and Constantine. So I said, well, open it. What is it? So she opened this package, and it was like, you get your water bottle. And I think it's very pertinent to today's conversation because it was an athlete water bottle. Okay. When I say athlete, this thing, I've never seen such a big bottle in my life. It was one of those metal ones, and it held like 3 gallons of water. So Shane, I think you can tell us whether that is normal or not, but it's the biggest thing of water, a water carrier I've ever seen in my life. And that keeps me really tied into Fogel and Potamianos. So thanks very much, guys. I appreciate that.
Always.
Well, we are firm believers in hydrate or die.
Yeah.
So
tell you what, mate.
you don't want to see anything happen to you, Mark.
I was very impressed with that. Then we have Constantine, Jerome's partner at the law firm. He's a co-founder, and he advises private and publicly held companies on strategic corporate operation matters. He is also a mentor at a number of business accelerators, including Techstars, Bunker Labs, and Patriot Bootcamp. His expertise includes buying and selling side mergers, acquisitions, reverse mergers, domestic and foreign stock acquisitions, and domestic and foreign asset acquisitions. That's a lot of info, but I've been working with Constantine, and I'm very happy to say and can stand with in good vigilance to say that Constantine, all of those things he does, and he does them exceptionally well. So thanks very much, Constantine, for your brilliance and for coming on today. I'd then like to introduce, it looks like Charles Chesher's in the house. What's up, Charles? We've spoken before.
Hello.
What's up, mate?
Hello.
The manager at 45 Enterprises, CEO of the Chessher Group. Charles is a leader in outsourcing operations for both small and large corporations. He helps plan, implement, and educate business owners on developing a business plan, identifying market needs, and developing the necessary skills for business ownership. Charles, all I can say for you, mate, I definitely need to have an appointment because, all of those things are definitely needed in today's environment. So thanks very much for coming on again, Charles. It was a pleasure seeing you. Who have we got next? We've got Shane Costa. He's an NFL player agent with Generation Sports Group, and he is also a sports law professor. He has over a decade in experience in professional football. Shane worked for the Buffalo Bills in player personnel and football administration. And after graduating law school, Shane became a certified NFLPA agent and has represented nearly 50 players in the NFL, including draft picks, pro bowlers, and starters. An attorney admitted to the New York State Bar, Shane also practices law in Buffalo and represents and advises coaches in their employment agreements. Shane, always a pleasure. How's the weather in Buffalo, my friend?
It's actually pretty good. Like 65 and cloudy. I mean,
65 and cloudy.
We've had snow at this point, so I'll take anything above like 45 degrees, frankly. So it's great.
Yeah, that's everyone moves to California. That's what I say. We pay, what is it? We pay weather tax in California.
Right.
Anyway, thanks, Shane. Thanks for coming on again. Good to see you. And we've got, what happened to, where's our Julian? Where's Julian? Is he here?
Yes, we have Julian.
Julian, hey, mate, how are you? Sorry, I'm the Zoom thing you right.
Very well.
Right there you are.
Very well.
Okay, Mr. Master Julian Lowe. He's the chaplain at the LA Clippers. Pastor Julian Lowe is of the Oasis Church and is passionate about teaching the city of Los Angeles and for the church to be a true family. Julian is a passionate and humorous teacher of God's word. He began following Jesus after his career in the music industry. Pastor Julian has led the church alongside his wife, Christina, since October of 2019. Together, they are convicted to continue to learn to live the lifestyle of Jesus. Julian, welcome to the foray, my friend. It's your first time, and we are very happy to see you because let me tell you, in any kind of work in this day and age, Jesus is needed nearby because I think, aspiring to a very humble, clean life and, just everything that he did on the planet, I think that everyone needs a little bit of that. Some people believe in Jesus, some people don't, but I think that that part of your life is very important, especially when it comes into conducting business, making business, and trying to make the earth a better place, which I think is at the foray of most of us. So thank you, Julian, for joining us, and love to hear your thoughts on what you have to say today. Okay, guys, so without further ado, that's all of our panelists here today. So we're just going to start with this, there's just a few of us, so we're going to start with a couple of questions. Obviously, we're dealing with the athlete of the future. So we're going to be just discussing a couple of topics, and I think just feel free to jump in. I'm just going to leave it sort of open table at the moment. If you've got something, just jump in there and we can let that start the conversation and just see where it goes. And then we can move on to other aspects. But I think most important, because this is Jerome's ball game, we're going to start with the changing legal landscape. Okay, something in the like of gaming, the name and likeness rights, and player contracts. Jerome, how is that being changed, or how is that progressed? With the impact of COVID, has anything changed when you're negotiating contracts with players or athletes? The name and likeness rights. Those are all important things when it comes to, sports and making sure that athletes get their due, what they are due. If you want to kick that off, Jerome, just let us know what's happening in that field.
Great topic.
Jay, sorry.
Great topic. Honored to be here and glad I'm off mute now.
There you go.
I mean, there's two things I think that are relevant, and I know that, I'm sure Shane can comment, and Charles. So the first thing is that you're having more rights for athletes. The NCAA and legislation and Supreme Court are trying to figure out, how do you thread the needle to give more rights to athletes but not destroy college sports? And I think you had the NIL, recent legislation allowing college players to profit off their name and likeness. You've had, $1 million contracts given out to some players. So I think that's going to be a huge story for a long time. So number one is more rights to athletes. The second thing is, there's a what's called a 50-state solution to gaming, meaning Congress hasn't acted. So states are individually figuring out gaming rights, but what that's doing is it's infusing a large amount of cash into the system, even to the point where, Caesars is reportedly going after the top two names in NFL NBA insiders, Adam Schefter and Adrian Wojnarowski. So they're reportedly in a potential bidding war to have their rights in terms of having them become analysts, and that's a huge shockwave through the system if that was to happen. So you're seeing stadiums named, you're seeing tons of advertising going on. So that means a lot of money is coming into the system, and it's just going to mean basically more opportunities for athletes in the future. It's also going to mean more, FBI and other regulatory agencies are going to be more active, because there eventually is going to be a scandal that's going to hit at some point. It's just a matter of time because of this much access. Those are the two things I would say: the rights, and then the gambling proliferation would be the two things.
So Jerome, but is there more, when you say more power in essence coming on the players, is because before an agent would sort of handle all those sort of things for the player, but is it now becoming more individualistic where they're deciding what, the gaming aspects of that, or there's still people negotiating their contracts for them, or for these contracts, their agents?
Yeah, probably.
Shane.
Probably a better Shane question.
Yeah, Shane question.
I mean, maybe Shane want to chime in here.
Actually, let me jump in for a second as well too, because that kind of segues with something that we were discussing before we started the webinar. And I posed a question to the group in terms of whether the folks that are actually involved day to day with the athletes, Shane and Julian and Charles, whether they're seeing an evolution in the thinking of players, especially new players coming into the professional ranks. And that's whether they're seeing a focus on new ways to monetize themselves, new interest in new areas of business activity, and whether they're seeing increased interest in diversifying their monetary streams away from simply their athletic endeavor and their sponsorship opportunities to other areas. And I think that ties into what Jerome is saying too, as we're starting to see this earlier and earlier in the college ranks. For example, within the last couple of years, the UT football team, the Longhorns, had asked me to come in to speak in front of their athletes as part of their player development program.
Yeah.
And the sense that I got in speaking with these young scholar athletes was that a lot of them were interested in entrepreneurship. A lot of them were already thinking about, what they're going to do in addition to their potential sports careers, et cetera. Yes. And I'm curious to see if this is filtering through, the ranks as they start to join professional teams, and what Shane's hearing and seeing, and what Julian is seeing, and perhaps what Charles is seeing as well, from not just the young athletes, but also, the older athletes or the retired athletes, and how they're developing their businesses in a diversified manner, and how interested they are in some of the new opportunities for monetization that we've been talking about. Social media, like you referred to, Mark, the whole idea of crypto and NFTs.
Yes. Yes.
So it's a broad question, but I throw that out to Shane and Julian and Charles.
Yeah, guys, is that, is like, the sport that I watch a lot of is obviously MMA. So let's take like Conor McGregor, for example. He came in as a mixed martial artist fighter, obviously diversified into, many things, clothing, whiskey, all these different brands. But it feels like what Constantine was saying is that that's becoming like more focused like that. Before, someone would say, oh, you know, they'd offer him a deal like George Foreman, let's make a grill. But now it seems like that it's like almost part and parcel of what people are doing. Athletes are not only signing their contract, playing football or this, they're really, like Constantine says, they're really looking, okay, let's do this, or let me get involved in that. So it's like, it seems like, is that an impact of COVID, or is that just something that's just naturally been progressing with people trying to be more entrepreneurial in essence, outside of their sport or on top of their sport? Shane, what are you saying to these things?
Yeah.
What's your
So what's interesting is we're in an era of exponential increase in technology, which is always going to lead into an exponential increase of areas of revenue, of areas of business, as you all know. And what's really interesting is you mentioned COVID at the end there, and that's something that's, I think, in many ways accelerated some expansion of these things. You know, I mean, maybe you guys have heard of the booking platform Cameo. You know, that's a really good example that I can think of, that a couple of years ago, you know, started. And I remember when they were growing and we were starting to get our athletes enrolled, and now it's this huge program. And, you know, before it might've been a little weird to get like a video of somebody just talking, you know, to you. And now, well, that's how we conduct meetings, and that's how we conduct seminars. And so COVID certainly, I think, accelerated some of this stuff. You know, there's always, to me, been an interest in, and I would say the majority of athletes, certainly not all, but the majority, to, you know, do different business ventures, be, you know, entrepreneurial, expand their, you know, their brand and image. I think the younger generation has embraced it a lot because social media has put it in their hands. I mean, you know, when these guys follow influencers, celebrities, athletes themselves growing up and seeing how they do things, that's become something they've been comfortable since the time they've had a phone in their hands, which is what, 6, 7, 8 years old now, for some generations. And so it definitely has been, you know, something that's gone on, you know, quite a bit more as of late. But here's an interesting thing that, you know, I tell a lot of people, maybe it's a surprise to them, but when I represent an athlete, the first thing I tell them is, look, when you're starting out, make sure you're focusing on football first, because your success off the field is going to be, you know, derived from your success on the field. In other words, if you get cut from a team or you don't make it, you probably don't have as much of a platform or a brand.
Right.
And it's very easy, I think, sometimes for athletes to think, okay, well, if I'm on a team, I'm just going to be, you know, this brand and have like a lot of opportunities. And that can be true sometimes if you're the #1 overall pick, but a lot of times some of your success off the field is derived from that success on the field. So we always remind players, hey, you know, focus first on making the team, on making plays, and that stuff will come. You know, it might not come overnight, but it will come. And I think sometimes some players, especially young players, can maybe rush that stuff just a little bit too much. And I don't want to call it a distraction by any means, but, you know, like we do all times, you know, you don't want to bite off, you know, more than you can chew. So that's something I like to remind my players too.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Charles, and how about you, Julian? What are your thoughts on just anything you want to throw out there on what we've just discussed, or just from your POVs, different POVs?
Yeah, I would agree with Shane. It's just the nature of the modern day where there's just more opportunities out there. They're more familiar with social media or digital media or things like that. And so the opportunities for these young, you know, players are just endless because there's so many things in person, digital, that they can do. I find that the more the older generations of the retired players, it's more training, retraining kind of how they do things. They're used to the Wheaties commercials or the certain endorsement deals or whatever it may be. And the day has changed where all of that is different, and how they do it, the efficiency that things are done in and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I find, but with the right people around them, I'm finding that even a lot of the older players or the retired players can still take benefit in that. So yeah, it just depends on where they're at and the team that they have around them.
Okay, perfect. And how about you, Julian?
Yes, in my time of dealing with athletes,
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, 100%.
In my time of dealing with athletes, being a chaplain, you have really, there's some other categories, but there are basically two categories that each athlete is playing the game. Some of them, the playing in the NBA is their dream. So
Yes.
they did what they did to get into the NBA. But a much larger portion of the athletes I've gotten a chance to deal with, they're doing what they're doing to get out of the poverty that they grew up in. And so you would think that these produce the same player, but they don't. There are players who it was their dream to get into the NBA, and some players it was their dream to get out of poverty, and the NBA was the only way. And so what this creates is that the poverty that they grew up in created two things for them: circumstances and mindsets. So a lot of it is they may have a healthy contract, but still have the mindset of how they grew up, and they want to use business to get out of that mindset to learn and grow. And sometimes they don't even care if it makes them money. They're just training themselves to get out of that mindset, and they want to create generational wealth for their families. And so I think a lot of that has to do with quite honestly, they're bored with just playing basketball, because that was their way out, not necessarily the dream that they had.
Wow. Yeah, nicely
Pastor
put.
Lowe, can I ask you a follow-up question with regards to that?
Yeah.
You say trying to get out of the mindset, and I understand a little bit about that. I think most of us here have kind of made their own way in life, and whatever success we've achieved, we've kind of had to figure out how to do it. More so for athletes coming from a disadvantaged background. But maybe for our benefit here, maybe explain some of the mindset that you think they want to get out of and want to replace with new ideas and new concepts.
Yes. So what I mean by that is that if you present a deal to me, and I'm an athlete, and that deal is going to make me $50 million, but I have a $200 million contract over the next 4 years, then I'm going to maybe want to do business with you based off what I learn, not based on just what money I make. And so that I can learn to have a business mindset. A lot of these guys want to be around people where they're being taught things that they never had the opportunity to learn based off where they come from. So, me, for example, being, a fan of basketball and golf, I like to golf with people who teach me something about the game, not just someone who is a good time or we're going to have it. And so I think a lot of that, it comes from that mindset where poverty comes with unbelief. Things are never going to change. And it comes usually not a great group of friends. And so these guys are looking for relationship, not just finance and money. They have that. So relationship and growth, and some of the things that you don't see in a lot of great spaces when people are growing up in certain conditions.
So there's a strong element of personal growth in their journey.
1000%. If you're going to interact with an athlete who already has money, my experience would be where there's relationship and where they're learning something, it heightens the excitement of them wanting to, especially for the guys that are playing ball to pay their bills.
Yeah. That's
I watched, Julian, I think that's so true. I mean, I watched a documentary on Jay-Z, and Jay-Z, came from a very, one of the toughest neighborhoods in New York City, but just how he used, obviously he used, in essence, what you're saying, which is what I like, is that he wasn't necessarily going to be a rapper in the beginning, but he used that to then generate something to get out of the situation he was in, but then took it upon himself, like you're saying, to be in the surrounded by people that were constructing deals and things like that. And I think that's one of the most important lessons in life, is that you do need to, there's someone who just has a brilliant way to do something, you know, you may not know how to, you know, put an air conditioner together, but one of your mates is can just do it. You know, and it's about being around people like that. You do start to get, you know, you do start to become enlightened, if you could put it that way. And it's, you know, just since I've known Jerome, I've become a better human being, you know, because I test you these things, but, you know, Jerome's done some amazing introductions to me for my business. And not that, but I mean, it's more than that. He's a great golfer as well, you know, so I can take a little bit of, you know, this and that from him, but I think that's important. Life isn't, like you said, life isn't about money. It's about growing your internal wealth to the point where you are wise. I think attaining wiseness is ultimately the chief goal. But you could tell me if I'm wrong, Julian, but that's the way I see it, is that you go through life. It's like this morning, I'll give you an example. So I was coming to do this, you know, host this thing with you guys. And I was in the jungle, which in my place in the jungle is like 30 miles out in the jungle. So, and there was a big storm here last night. So I'm on my motorbike, because my wife doesn't even drive a motorbike in LA. So that's all I ride in Mexico is my motorbike. So I went to start my motorbike this morning, it wouldn't start. So I'm like, so I was trying to figure out, now I've got a problem. I was like, okay, I need to get to this. I've got to be on the Zoom call in 90 minutes. And the motorbike is just, it's not going. I was kicking it, I did everything, wouldn't go. So it got, you know, rained on, flooded last night. So I guess it's just one of those life circumstances. I was like, whatever happens, I have to be at this place at this time, no matter what happens. So this is where Julian comes in. So, you know, you say a big prayer, and blow me down, guy out of nowhere arrives with this girl. They're going to sell jewelry on the beach. And he's like, hey, you want to ride to Tulum? I was like, sure. And it was just, yeah, definite act of God, I'd like to say. That's one. But it's, to me, life is like those little circumstances, whether you're, you know, getting paid, you've got like you said, $100 million contract, and you've got something else. Money is great. You need it. We've all got to generate it. But at the same time, I think doing stuff around people that can help develop you as a person is super important.
Yeah, I'll tell a story. I'll tell a story, Mark. Real quick. I was one time a personal trainer at 24 Hour Fitness. This was the Magic Johnson sport. And he would come and he would bike in the morning. Now, because he's so tall, he'd have the seat like 5 feet up. And one time I just, I had the courage. I said, hey, Mr. Johnson, I want to thank you for the opportunity to letting me, work here and be a personal trainer. And he said, hey, I see you. I see the smile on your face, your positive attitude. Thank you so much for being here. But what I didn't know that, many, many years ago, he always wanted to be a business person, and that he was a janitor, and when he was cleaning the CEO's desk, he would sit in the CEO's desk and he would pretend to be the CEO. When he was a Laker, because of his access to the people who came to see games, he went and he called about 20 to 30 people, including Michael Ovitz and other business people, to learn from them. Hey, I want to learn how to do business. And he had conversations, 30 conversations. So to Pastor Julian's point, he went and sought the wisdom and has become an amazingly successful entrepreneur. But to Shane's point also, he did focus on what he was doing on the field that get him the attention. So one of the predictions I have, and I was thinking about this before we even heard what Shane and Julian and Charles said and Counsel said, but you're going to have more players transcending beyond the game of sports. Mm-hmm. And I think it's for the very thing that Shane was saying, was that, they focus on what they do on the field, but then it opens up opportunities. They leverage social media and engagement to develop opportunity. And then what Julian is saying, they're around people like Ndamukong Suh made a relationship with Warren Buffett. I mean, it goes on and on. And so developing relationships and doing things that transcend beyond the game of sports, you're going to have more athletes than ever doing that, because the contracts, I think, are going to keep getting bigger with the infusion of gaming money, with the NIL money in college. So I think that's the direction things are going to go.
I want to add something, if I may, to
Sure.
what you were saying, Jerome, and Pastor Julian was saying as well. I think for the successful striver in any endeavor, but also in athletic endeavors, there's an element of self-confidence and humility that's required to actually truly move forward. And I think part of the great thing about the athletic community is that it does allow the participants to develop a level of self-confidence. And if they can balance that out with humility, well, then the world is their oyster. I was speaking early on with the executive director of Techstars here in town, and we were talking about philosophies of entrepreneurship and you know, who we want to bring in, et cetera. And he said, Constantine, the biggest trait that I look for in anybody I bring into the program is coachability. They have to be willing to learn. They have to want to learn. And that goes to exactly what Pastor Julian was saying and Jerome was saying. You know, you have to have the self-confidence to know what you don't know and the desire to learn, you know, and to surround yourself with people that can help teach you things. And with that said, you know, there's a question in my mind, and I posed this to Shane and Pastor Julian and Charles, which is, okay, for young athletes getting into this area, you know, what would you suggest as mechanisms to build those relationships, learn, grow, expose themselves to what they want to expose themselves to, if they're interested in continuing to build out, not just from their sports success, but also in the business world?
I'll start. That's a really good point and question. And it's funny, you know, as much as we talk about technology and the athlete of the future and things changing, there's still some core fundamental principles that, you know, still apply throughout the years, right? And one of the first things I tell athletes is you're going to be exposed to so many people just because you have that team's logo on your chest. Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to meet corporate sponsors. You're going to meet leaders in the community. You're going to meet, you know, executives all around the league and their partners. And same thing applies. I mean, if you get a business card, you should write on the back of that thing how you met this person, maybe something you learned, and follow up with them. And that sounds, you know, now you can do it a little bit electronically, right? Maybe it's a LinkedIn message, or maybe it's you know, a good old fashioned, you know, email, or, you know, message somebody via Instagram, social media. But those principles are still really important. And what we tell our players is, look, this is just the way fandom in sports works. You're never going to be as highly visible, probably, or as I don't want to say interesting, but people are gonna, you know, love the fact that you're a player in the league, you know. And I'm really familiar only with the NFL, but if you're a member of the Tennessee Titans, Buffalo Bills, New England Patriots, you're gonna meet so many people who love that, and they're gonna want to connect with you, work with you, etc. If you start doing your networking and your business venturing after you're done playing, unless you were a really high profile visible player, it's just not going to have quite that same impact. I wish it did, but there's the time to take advantage of it is when you're in the game and you know, while you have access to all those people, because when you're done playing, it just doesn't happen quite as much. So it's kind of funny. I mean, the mechanism of doing it might be different. Again, maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's social media, but if you meet somebody, try and remember them, follow up with them, network with them. And it really is impactful. And I think it's really effective.
Yeah. Constantine, I would say to your question is, you know, the younger guys coming in is really just to be careful. You know, there's so much money involved in sports. We're talking about multi-billion-dollar industry. And a lot of times, we work with a lot of international players, and a lot of times they're not as familiar of how business works in the United States. As Julian's point, we work, different low income groups of people that they didn't go to college, they didn't go to business classes. Their parents didn't teach them the economics of business and all this kind of stuff. And it's unfortunate because they don't have, a lot of times the teams that's around them are also kind of wanting to profit from them because there's so much money at hand. And so that's usually a conversation we have often is, let's get you around a group of people that, sure, everybody's in it for business. I get it. People need to make money, pay their bills, but that are not trying to take advantage of the players, but are actually trying to develop the player's career, actually care about, what the players they're experiencing, getting them in the right, I love the Magic Johnson. I think that was you, Jerome, that was talking about that, like getting them in the right counsel, helping them understand the business, because it's, to Shane's point, there are a few select players that after they retire that will continue on in the sports industry, in the sense of endorsement deals or in the sense of TV or whatever the next steps may be. And so this is really their time to develop a lot of, their initiatives so that it could carry on for a lifetime of legacy financially in other areas. So that's our biggest thing is, kind of a lot of the sharks in the industry, to be, for a lack of a better word, is being careful of those kinds of situations and getting them in situations that are healthy for them. Because a lot of times they don't know one way or from the other because they're athletes. They're not necessarily business people. So.
Charles, you bring up an excellent point that I was thinking about this as I was listening to some of the discussions on this point, which is probably the most important skill that a young athlete or any entrepreneur can learn early on is just basic critical thinking skills. Right? Because there are so many things coming at you, and even if they're all good, you still need to be able to winnow that down to the opportunity that makes most sense to pursue right now. The people that make the most sense to trust. And these critical thinking skills, go back to, and in this sense, coming from a disadvantaged background for some athletes could be advantageous because your spidey sense is a little bit more developed. With respect to people, with respect to whether somebody is looking out for you or not, but not always, and developing those critical thinking skills and applying it across the board to people, opportunities, business ventures is, I think, hugely important as they develop their brand and their business empire. Pastor Julian, what do you think?
I would say that in the space that I deal with, I wouldn't be the guy who would help them close a business deal, but I would be the guy that helps them keep a certain mentality as they're dealing with business and doing what they're supposed to be doing. And one of those two big mentalities that I have, whether they're it's an entertainment thing or an athletic thing, is that live like you have something to give, not like you have something to prove. Hey, you're all in the NBA. You're all in the NBA. If you live like you have something to prove, then when you actually accomplish that, it'll never be good enough. Live like you have something to give. You have something to give your families. You have something to give to your teammates. You have something to give to this league. If you come into it like you have something to prove, it'll never be good enough. If you win a championship, now you got to repeat. If you get a contract, now you need a contract extension. And I have found that has helped a lot of athletes shape the way that they approach something. And and I have to live by that myself. There's times where I want to prove something, and everything I do becomes unhealthy at that point. And so the other mindset is no matter what you believe, whether you believe in God, Jesus, whatever, there is a great destruction that comes with anyone living with true unbelief. Meaning that if you don't believe, if belief doesn't precede action, then the action is automatically limiting. You're limiting what you could accomplish. And so a practical story in that was I did a chapel. This was 2019, before the Clippers had Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. They had made it to the playoffs and they were playing the Golden State Warriors. And their coach comes in there and says, hey, we can win this game. That's what a coach is supposed to do. In our chapel, I said, hey, you guys are going to be down when you go to Golden State and you're going to be down big. And I told them the story of David and Goliath. Like, they had Kevin Durant, you guys are going to be down big. What you believe when you get down big determines what you accomplish, and you can make history based off what you believe. The very next game, they were down by 31 points in the third quarter, and they had the largest comeback in playoff history. And they came back to the chapel the next day and said, we believed. And I think teaching players to believe when they're at their lowest point, what you believe at your lowest point moves you forward to get to your highest point. So those are the two biggest things that I would say. What you believe at your lowest point can propel you to your highest point, and live like you have something to give, not something to prove.
Wow, that's well
Honestly,
put.
That's amazing.
That applies to business and entrepreneurial ventures and everything else. You know, it's at some point it has to be about more than just accumulating wealth. You know, what is your legacy? What do you want to leave? You know, who do you want to help?
I think Julian like nailed it there. I think that, you know, and I think back, it's like, I look at myself and I think, well, why did I come to Mexico to do this project? It's probably one of the toughest paths I could have taken. Could have done it in the US, and, you know, everyone speaks English and everything, you know, understand everything. But I chose a very difficult path. And I don't know whether I do that in my life just on purpose, because I don't want things to come easy, but I always feel like if I go through a very difficult patch, like you're saying, Julian, what, you know, what's in your mind? What are you thinking at your lowest point? Because if you do push through and succeed, then it feels like it feels better. So I don't know if I'm on the wagon of choosing these difficult paths, but it certainly makes sense to what you're saying. And further to that, what I wanted to bring up now, and especially to you, Julian, in terms of like, I know a lot of athletes do this, and it's a big part of their careers and post-careers is community work, non-profit work. I know that a lot of athletes that I like a lot, sometimes you never hear about these great things they're doing in the thing. And I don't know, I'm sometimes unsure why that that people, that these things aren't highlighted more. But there's some athletes doing some great stuff behind the scenes to try and help people. And like you said, you know, help people that aren't good at business, to show them business, to help this person, that person. I think that's such an important part of the growth of the athlete. What's happening in that sort of realm from your point of view, community, nonprofit work?
Well, I think it also is a part of the organization that you are part of. I think every athlete wants to make a difference. They want to do something bigger than themselves. There is a lot of community work that happens behind the scenes. I do think certain athletes want to be under the radar, and certain athletes, you know, being quite honest, the things that you see that are highly publicized in most nonprofit spaces are under monetized. So highly publicized is usually under monetized. So when you see a person in Haiti and it's on every commercial, and you actually go to Haiti, they didn't get a lot of that money. So typically that's the way the nonprofit space works, is that when you meet someone, you'll find out that they have done. Malcolm Brogdon of the Indiana Pacers does literally probably one of the most nonprofit guys in the NBA. They were just in the Indiana State Prison. He took his whole team and spent time and had a basketball game with prisoners in Indiana. Awesome. You know, Patrick Beverley of the Clippers redesigned an entire Van Nuys YMCA and gave each one of the kids going their bikes, and you just don't hear it. Part of that is our media, and this is the biggest pressure that I have found athletes deal with, is that negativity in media sells. So they're going to report Kyrie Irving not getting a vaccine, but not report anything he does in his community. And that's a huge weight for them that they don't report it.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Julian, we just got a question here. Is this Jerome? Is this from Thomas Lee? Okay, yeah. Sorry guys, we've got a question. I'll pose it to everyone. So Thomas Lee's written in. He said, part of what's required is a paradigm culture shift. How do we reach out to current and aspiring athletes who have a million voices screaming and clamoring for their attention, so that we can educate and prepare them for their future, and perhaps have a salary effect on upcoming generations?
I think that's a really good question. If y'all don't mind me answering for a few minutes. So
yeah, go ahead, Charles.
Number one, it's very challenging. As you said, they have a million voices. And so we found successful, number one, relationship when they are able to build a relationship with you, whether it's on the golf course or whether it's in different aspects of life, and they start to trust you as opposed to all the other millions of voices. That always helps. And then two, it's always good to form partnerships with credible organizations. I know, for example, Major League Baseball, that's where we do some work in. And so there's, the MLB Players Association is a good one, or different organizations like that are going to bring credibility, that a lot of times they're working with the players already. And you partnering with them or building a relationship with them can kind of position you in a place where you're more of a voice of authority for these players. So we found that those two outlets are successful.
Okay. Anyone else want to add to that, to Thomas's question? Charles just nailed it to the wall. Okay, guys, we've got it. We don't have too much time, so I want to go through a couple more things. So just quick broad question on COVID. We all know it's shifting, it's changing. People are requiring passports to move around. How's this affecting athletes? And is it just regular like everyone else, or athletes in more of a position? I mean, obviously I watch MMA, like I said, so I know they're all going to Dubai to go and fight. The stadiums aren't really full yet. What's happening with that on that aspect of being an athlete? How's COVID impacting right now and for the foreseeable future?
I'll take it real quick, at least in the football context. I mean, obviously there's been, quite a bit in the news in terms of, not just, players that, with various, whether it's a mandate or, different protocols, depending on whether you've been vaccinated or not. But there's been probably an understated effect too on the recent generation of athletes coming in, that may have had opportunities limited over the past 2 years. And there was a whole draft class of NFL players that didn't even get to do their pro day, where they could meet with teams, get time tested, meet with scouts, et cetera. And some of those guys are still feeling the effects of that. And they just don't have as much. There's no preseason last year. So that means there's no film out there for a lot of players, at least on the back end of rosters. So there were quite a bit affected. And, look, I mean, who knows where things are going to go over the next couple of months. I think we're all, certainly, hopeful that things continue to improve, but, we're also cautious. How many times have we, hoped for something and then, maybe there's setbacks and challenges. But that's, part of, athletes are I think are particularly well adapted and accustomed to facing certain challenges and overcoming them, whether that's, fighting for a spot on a team or balancing, their college requirements and their playing for the team, or, anything else in life. And so I think they've been pretty good at adapting and learning on the fly. And I think that's been a big help. The other thing I want to say, I'm going to have to hop off here in a minute, but it didn't dawn on me until just recently that I was brought on this panel because I represent athletes and not that I am an athlete. So Jerome, I don't know. I thought maybe for sure, you brought me on for my soccer skills in high school, but no, it was because I represent athletes. So that's disappointing.
We know you're a great athlete, too, Shay.
It's actually not true. I was terrible. That's why I represent them. That's why I read the contract.
There you go. Okay. Okay, well, Shane volunteered some information, so I think we're coming right down to the wire. Is anyone who wants to say anything we haven't touched on? Just anything you want a personal view on athletes in the future? Something we don't know about, some stock market increase or something new coming into, some new app coming in, anything on the athlete side that you think would be pertinent to sort of voice right now?
I want to say one thing and leave it to anyone else, but going to the idea of community and how we each add to each other's success. I just want to say thank you to Shane and Pastor Julian and Charles for everything that they do to support and create a healthy environment for young, established, retired athletes. It's an incredible benefit that they bring to the community as a whole. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's great.
Yeah, I will second Constantine on that. I think that that's the most important. I see it again, I'm just harping on my own issues, but I see the community, like if I compare life in Los Angeles compared to life in Mexico, it's a communitized place. People will help you if you need help. There's more a sense of making life about getting together and helping to improve someone else's life, as opposed in LA where things are very, sort of closed off and sort of all on you, all or nothing on your own accord. So I think, and I hope that's the way things are going. I hope that we're going back to those sort of more community sort of, what I grew up in Africa was very community based. Everything was done, for the betterment of the community, not just seeking your own glory, So yeah. I feel like things are shifting. I think LA might take a little bit longer than everywhere else, but I think that I think things are changing. I feel like they are anyway. My effect of COVID, I think, even brought out that even more, the community aspect of it. But I think, like Constantine said, I think it's critical. Critical for the human development, human mind development.
Yeah, I think there's an inertia that builds there as well, which is, when you do good for others, when you do right by them, when you provide them good advice, when you help them achieve success, I think usually if you're dealing with somebody with a similar standpoint on the other side, that engenders in them the desire to do the same. It magnifies over time, I think.
I was going to add too, you just, athletes like anybody else, it's the people you surround yourself with. And so if you're, man, I can't be an NFL player, but I sure would want to be represented by someone like Shane, and I certainly can't, dunk a basketball. I mean, I'm 5'7", but I sure would want to have.
Yeah, but your golf, Jerome, golf is out of the park, man.
Yeah, I sure would want someone like Pastor Julian, helping me and counseling me, and I want someone like Charles dealing with, broadcast and endorsement agreements, and someone like Constantine, developing the corporate strategy and entrepreneurial strategy, and someone like Mark who's training me and putting me on his new fitness platform, which will be coming out soon here. So be like the next Peloton.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. It sounds like you. That's a ploy for a new nonprofit, Jerome. I'm in, mate. I'm in. Just let us know.
Yeah.
But like you said, important. I think important to have, those people. It's important. That's why I mean, my wife works in the church in Santa Monica. She leads family ministry, Julian, at Vintage in Santa Monica. But I'm always amazed that when you go to church, like there's always people there that it's a great community. It's if you've got got nowhere else to go and you're feeling lonely, go to church, because there's a great community and people wanting to help you. And I think, like Jerome just said, you do need that in your life. You think you're invincible and you can do everything on your own, but you can't. You need not help, but you need inspiration, and you need people to motivate you. And going to a place where there is a community style setup, it's as clear as day. But you walk in there and you feel better because you're talking to someone about some problem you had, or something about something in the future, and someone you're having that great community. And church is a good place because people are there to do good things. So I listen to everything that you're saying, Constantine, Jerome, and Shane, Charles, Julian. I think we nailed it. The athlete of the future needs a commando team right at his side to filter all that information. Yeah, that's important.
Thank you.
Okay,
so
guys,
much.
we're right here. We're right towards it. Let me just see if anyone else wrote something. James said valuable insights and conversation. Thanks to all the panelists. No more questions. I think we're good. Yeah, I think if there's one last piece of gold nugget, Constantine, I can see you want to jump on that and leave us inspired for the next till the next panel.
I simply wanted to thank you, Mark, for doing a wonderful job of moderating once again, and for inspiring us by your example every day. So thank you.
Thank you, Constantine. It's my absolute pleasure. I'd love for you guys. Anytime, any place, mate. I'm even when we go to Mars, we'll do one from there. No problem.
Cool.
I'll hold you to that.
Yeah. So I just want to thank everyone. I thank Shane again and Charles for coming on. We've been before. Julian, it was lovely to hear your insights and your words, and of course Jerome and Constantine from the legal perspective. Thanks, guys. I'm inspired and motivated just being here too. Over all the points that you've said, whether you're an athlete playing basketball, I think a human being, we're all athletes. You know what I'm saying? It's you're going out to be playing sport every day in some form or another. So I think that everything that was said today was rudimentary and applicable to everyone in every place. So keep going, andale, keep striving, keep rocking forward, guys. And just want to thank you again for coming in and tuning in. To everyone else who's been watching and listening, thanks, guys. And I'm sure Jerome will be organizing another one in the future. So we'd love to have you back, and feel free to throw in your questions and thoughts and ideas like Thomas and James did. So thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon in the near future.
Wonderful.
Everyone.
Thank you. God bless everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day.
God bless.